Thank you, Stephen, for giving me this opportunity to reach you through the waves, through the power of the media, rather than being with you today, because you know the reasons why I'm not with you. I have a privilege motion from the Indian Parliament to show cause why I should not be punished for letting them know that how hypocritical they've been to the people of India. India today, till now, Stephen and my friends, still doesn't have an independent ombudsman at the center, the ineffective ombudsman, the kind Sweden has, the kind Nordic countries have, we still don't have. So we had raised a collective voice. So I want to thank you. I'm staying back to answer a privilege motion to the Indian Parliament. And if I had been away, I would have not been able to do my research to answer for we the people, as we say. So I want to thank you, Stephen, for giving me an opportunity to reach you out. I want to thank Cecilia. I want to thank the Borneo Media Group for having invited me and giving me this wonderful opportunity to reach out to some brilliant brains whom I missed listening, because as I saw your documents, I wish I was there to hear them. But I'm sure destiny would give me one more opportunity to be with you next year when there may not be a privilege motion pending. You asked me to speak on courage, Stephen. Courage has been bed and breakfast with me. Courage was with me from time one, because my parents were very courageous. Stephen, my mother and my father were very courageous. They were non-conformist. My mother non-conformist, my father non-conformist. It was a non-conformist home. And that's why I have a slide for you to share with you. I'm going to show you some slides I picked up for you because that's how we discussed. This is a slide of non-conformism, which came from my mother and my father. It was one of the most unique families, an Indian family of 4 girls in India, which prefers boys all the time. India is a country which still does not have social securities to pay for its elderly. And therefore, a son matters to every Indian family. And we were a family of 4 girls. 4 girls. And each one truly loved. Each one became a tennis champion of her own time. It was a non-conformist family, and I'm bringing you with some slides which give you evidence of my non-conformism from day one. And that's where courage came from. It was not being one of the many. It was standing out of the crowd. And I started I was 13 or 14 years old when I wore a uniform, a police uniform called the National Cadet Corps. And I was the best National Cadet Corps all the 4 years in my college, which means that I was daring to do what girls weren't daring to do. And my parents were daring me to do and making me do what rest of the country by and large was not daring to do. So I'm showing you a slide basically to drive home a point that non-conformism starts early. Courage doesn't come late unless one is compelled to do something and suddenly surfaces. But I believe courage you grow with. And in that, the family and the school environment has a very, very important role. So therefore, if you're talking about courage, courage grows with you. Show you the next slide now. Here's the next slide. Then from tennis to championships. Now this championship basically shows you that I was a constant explorer. That's the second quality of courage, is to be constant explorer, which means that constantly you compete at very competitive levels and you take on the stress. You're constantly exploring your excellence. You are winning, you are losing, and you're constantly learning. You're exploring to win and also trying to identify why did you lose. That means you are pushing the envelope every day. That's all about courage, because it's the easiest thing to do is giving up, but it's the toughest thing to do is going back and beating the opponent whom you'd lost earlier. So it's my second component of courage through my own personal experience is being a constant explorer. Let me take you to my next third slide. This is about the Indian police. See how important it was to show you the non-conformist National Cadet Corps uniform, and important it was to you how naturally it took me to tennis champions and being an Asian tennis champion and a national tennis champion. And courage to constantly win and learn from lose and not giving up, is it naturally took me to the Indian Police Service. Now in this Indian Police Service, it's all about self-belief. Because by this time, I'd learned a lot of self-belief. I knew I could do it. I could reach where I wanted to reach. This is very critical. Now, once you have that basis of the right basis as you grow up, the right genes which you're inducted in, or you acquire them, or you get them in, or you ingrain them, it takes you to a lot of self-belief. And I became the first woman in the Indian Police Service to become, to join the ranks, officer ranks, and no woman earlier had joined. It was so natural, but it was a self-belief that I could be no less than the boys. I was in a batch of 80 boys, and there was only one girl, and that was yours truly, Stephen. And therefore, what I'm saying is, this is what shook this country. And you know, it was in the year 1972. We became independent in 1947. And India got a first woman in the officer ranks of the Indian Police Service only in 1972. Imagine, it took us so long. I had an option to opt out. I was offered other services for which I qualified. I was called by the Home Minister of India to say, would you like to change your mind? And they did not know that I hadn't learned to change my mind for doing the right thing. And that is how I became the first woman in the Indian Police Service. Let me show you the next slide. This is about the 26th January parade, where I walked 25 kilometers non-stop with a sword in hand and led a male parade. This was nothing but courage. It was raw courage, because I had to walk every day about 40 kilometers to 30 kilometers of practice to do the 15 kilometers lap the final day. Because you got to run, if you run marathons, you got to do twice over to run the final marathon well. And that was nothing but raw courage. I had an option to opt out. In fact, I wasn't even being given this opportunity till I asked for it, to say, why am I not being given? Just because I'm a woman? And that's the time when my Inspector General said, oh, you really would like to do it? Because I was eligible. I was the only cadet at that time being a woman, and they wanted to pass this on to a man. So this I thought I would share with you. This is a parade, the Republic Day parade of 1975, when I led an entirely male parade for the first time, and I again had the option to opt out. But it was a continuity of the learned courage which you see as a depiction. As I said, unless you practice courage, you cannot deliver courage. Let me show you another slide. This, if you see, is is courage personified. I think, where is the slide which says it? Which I have done a little caption for you. I think that page is probably left. This is facing the fear. This was facing the fear. And if you notice, in fact, there's one more slide which they had swords in their hands. They were poking the swords into my stomach. And somehow the swords got exchanged, and or the swords follow, I don't recall now. But this was facing the fear. Another definition of being courageous is face the fear. And this brought me the Gallantry Award, but I must tell you that there were many of my male colleagues who abandoned these posts. And that is why I got the Gallantry Award, because, do you know what? It's not because they abandoned it. The media kept clicking it. This is media clicking the photographs on the side lawns of that place where the struggle was on. I didn't even know it was being clicked, but it is the clicked evidence which, when it reached the police headquarters, that my then police commissioner considered it meritorious and gallant. But again, I'm sharing with you, it's facing the fear is another definition of courage. Let me take you to another one. This is one of the greatest milestones, which is again fearlessness from people in power. People who think, dictate and decide the destinies of this country. I entered the police service as an Asian tennis champion. And I don't think the policing had an Asian tennis champion in their career. I always felt a feeling that, well, we all have responsibilities and roles, and no role is less important or more important than the others. There's a Prime Minister's role and there's a police officer's role. This is a news item where the Prime Minister's car was towed away, and Prime Minister's car got a ticket for having parked at the wrong place, Stephen and my friends who are listening to me. I hope my voice is reaching you, because this experiment is happening for the first time, which you're seeing today. I hope it works. I'll be very, very lucky that I would have reached you. But this was Prime Minister's car. And nobody had dared do it earlier. Nobody dared to do it later. This is a unique event which I'm showing you, where Mrs. Indira Gandhi's car, which it came for upholstery, and where the driver was wrongly parking it, and one of my police officers said, this is a no parking zone, take it away. When he said, don't you know it's Prime Minister's car? And the police officer said, that's not our policy. Our policy is the way the policy is in the Nordic countries. But India had a different policy. And you know, it's gone from bad to worse. We've lost those courageous officers. They do not have the courage to take on people in powers and position. I'm going to tell you later, because that's exactly my privileged motion against. This is when, and this has become history and a folklore for the youth of in the schools in this country. So this is where you see the title, PM's car held. Let me show you one more slide.